All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews, here to talk about the first episode of Amazon's Good Omens, based on a Neil Gaiman book, where it's about a demon named Crowley and an angel named played by Michael Sheen, because I'm not trying to pronounce that name, and how they're basically trying to stop the end of the world, that they don't quite understand why things have to end, because they've been on Earth all this time, and it seems to be that they pretty much like how things are. And there's this whole plot to deal with getting the Antichrist into the wrong hands, literally. Like, they're trying to do a little switcheroo, a little three-card monte. I love how they describe this whole thing. And how they want to get the Antichrist into the certain person's hands to bring about the end of the world. Coming from a very strict religious background, I still don't know how to quite approach this, because I'm not religious at all. And I used to be, and I'm not anymore. And I'm trying not to watch this with a bias. So I'm trying to think of it as just like another Neil Gaiman comic book where it's all made up. So whatever you believe in, know that I'm trying to come at this from a perspective of that I've never heard these stories before, even though it's really hard to push all that down. I think it's a nice touch that Frances McDormand is the narrator, who also plays God. Is it just me, or does God talk about her, him, whatever self in the third person? So again, like, I like that it's tongue-in-cheek. I like that it's trying to take this kind of subject matter and not be too far one way or the other. It definitely reminds me of Douglas Adams' For Religion. It also reminds me of Pushing Daisies, the show on ABC from a ways back, that dealt with a character who could bring people back from the dead. And so going forward, I hope I can do these reviews without any bias, and just be honest about how I felt about each episode and what the story is in general, which I gotta say is pretty entertaining, especially when you have my man crush John Hamm in the show. Also has Nick Offerman, who, again, I fucking love. So the cast in this is enough for me to be able to hopefully push past any kind of weird bias I have over the subject matter, which in the end I really don't have any interest in. I didn't like I just don't care about religious stuff. I don't watch religious movies. I've seen movies like Noah from Darren Aronofsky and things like that, but I don't feel one way or the other really about, I just don't like them. I'm just going to be honest. It's not religious movies aren't my first choice to watch. And so it all just hinges on, is the story good? Is the writing good? Is the acting good? Despite how I feel about the subject matter. And I gotta say, it's pretty entertaining. It's pretty entertaining. And I love, so let's just get out from the get-go, where right from the jump, it made me feel like I was watching, one sec. Douglas Adams, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I thought Frances McDormand's narration throughout makes me feel like I'm watching like a religious version of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And how ridiculous a lot of things seem to sound when you say them out loud. I also really liked the idea of how they portrayed the Garden of Eden, because as a kid, hearing the stories about the Garden of Eden, it was pretty much how I saw it. What they did here was, this garden is kind of surrounded by nothing, like a big desert. And that if you're inside the garden, you don't really know about the outside world. You don't need to. But it also made me feel like how much of a rigged game it all was. And that, the whole there's a plan kind of thing, and you just have to believe and trust in the plan blindly, just have faith. And I don't do that. I don't do anything. I try not to do anything blindly. But I do think that the story is fun. Because Crowley and Michael Sheen's angel character, which I cannot pronounce that name, Azraphale, something like that, are basically a couple of heavenly, hellish creatures who kind of like the way things are, And they're trying to stop the apocalypse, kind of pretty much for their own selves. Like, they like the way things are. They don't want to go through eternity, as they Crowley puts it. There's no Stephen Sondheim here, but if you like the sound of music, you're going to be hearing "Climb Every Mountain" a lot, which is great. And again, if I haven't said it already, John Hamm's in this, and John Hamm can do no wrong, in my opinion. And I hope to God John Hamm's a real good guy in real life, because I would hate to watch this like 10 years from now and find out that John Hamm was like the Antichrist himself. But speaking of which, that's basically what this is. So they do a little description of 3-card monte and how there's 3 babies being born at a convent for some reason, because I guess that's a thing that used to happen or does happen. And the Antichrist is to be delivered by Crowley to the right person, and that person will raise the kid, and the kid will become, the bringer of the end. I love the design of the demons that bring it, and all those guys, they have like the lizards and frogs and shit on their head. That was really cool. And also, like, Crowley driving up listening to Bohemian Rhapsody was really fun. And so with the whole switcheroo thing, it's like a sitcom where people keep coming in and out of the rooms, and in a way that is kind of like how a lot of that stuff is like 3-card monte. And eventually the baby ends up in the wrong place, because that's, of course, you could see that coming a mile away. And that the baby that Crowley and Michael Sheen's angel character, they end up watching the wrong kid. A kid that they're trying to both influence in good and bad. And I'm feeling like maybe that the point of that is that the kid will be so confused at what to do that he does nothing. But in the meantime, and that kid's, the naming scene, Jesus Christ, who would ever, Damien. You should name your kid Damien. That really, really happy movie called The Omen. That kid in that, name him after that. Warlock. Do they not have the name Warlock in the word Warlock in this universe, that they don't know that it means a male witch or whatever? And so at least the one person who says Adam, it's like, okay, fine. Well, Adam is actually the Antichrist, and he's been raised by these these nice people, and nobody knows it until the day of his 11th birthday. I think it's his 11th birthday, where he's supposed to get a hellhound. And once he names the hellhound, Armageddon begins. Well, the kid that Sheen and Tennant are following, he's just a little dick. And the dog doesn't go to him. They don't know that until too late, that it goes to the kid named Adam, who just names the dog. And the dog becomes a tiny little dog and gets petted. And you start to wonder, okay, well, if this is the beginning of the end of the world, maybe it's not so bad, because this kid seems to be, a born leader, but a good one. And even though this hellhound is a hellhound, maybe in the right hands, this hellhound would become a good dog. A good hellhound, whatever. I really like how they drink and then sober up. That was really, really clever. And just their chemistry, Tennant and Sheen's chemistry is really, really great. It also shows that kind of like heaven and hell basically have like the same agenda. That either way, the world's ending. So why should we root for heaven? And hell's just kind of like, yeah, let's destroy the whole thing. So I know that this whole thing is, there's a plan, and it's like, fuck plans. But I really, really enjoyed this first episode. I know I'm not covering everything because it's a little difficult for me to review this. I had an easier time reviewing The Dark, and I have a hard time reviewing mystery shows. But this is a whole other ball of wax. Anyway. I do think it's really entertaining, though, and as long as I am able to keep my step outside of my own personal feelings and watch it just as for a story alone, I think I'll be satisfied with it. And I think it is good enough. And if you like Tennant, this show is going to get a lot of Doctor Who fans watching it. And if you like Michael Sheen, you're going to be happy. Both these guys are killing it. And John Hamm is always killing it. And Frances McDormand's great. Nick Offerman is great in the FaceTime that we see him. But we do get some old Ron Swanson giggles out of the whole thing, so that's fun. But I do think that as far as just a setup episode to see where it's going to go from here on out is really intriguing. And so that's all I really have to say about it. I'll probably have another episode of this done by the end of the day. So if you like this review, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, all that rigmarole. Otherwise, this is Robert Smirking Gun Review saying, yes, I do have a Patreon now, and I do have a PayPal. If anybody feels inclined to donate to the channel, you're more than welcome to. The links are in the description below. And yeah, so this is Robert Smirking Gun Review saying, have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video.